Hello, folks. My name is Dustin Jones, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. It's Wednesday, so that means it's Jerry on Ice. This is a day where myself or my partner in crime, Christina Previtt, will talk about all things older adults. We teach modern management of the older adult, a 2-day live course, as well as an 8-week online course. And we just finished up our 6th week, 6 of 8 weeks. We had a meeting on Sunday where we talked about fear, we talked about cognition, and we talked about falls. And that kind of leads us into our conversation today. We're going to talk about how to fall without getting hurt. This stems from the conversation on Sunday, as well as a conversation that I just had with Ben Musholt. So for those that don't know Ben, he is an amazing physical therapist, human being, parkour athlete, business owner, author. I mean, the guy kind of has done it all, but he's just a great dude, really kind individual and just really intelligent and smart. And he's really challenging how people are thinking about falling. He spoke at the APHPT's Rising Tide event this past fall in 2018, and he wrote a blog article called How to Fall Without Getting Hurt on January 15, 2019. I'll post this, the links to all those things in this post. So I want to talk about the conversation I had with Ben, kind of run through his blog post. I want to show you some videos of kind of the continuum that he uses to teach the skill of falling and landing to some of his patients. So very practical. For the podcast listeners, you got to watch this video. It's going to make this experience a whole lot better. The audio will be good probably up until we go into those videos. So make sure you get the link in the show notes so you can watch that later. And then we're going to wrap up with introducing the How to Fall Challenge, where we are going to work to really change the narrative around falls and falls preparedness. Maybe not falls prevention, but preparedness. So let's start with just talking about Ben's perspective. So Ben comes from the world of parkour. Parkour is the skill of maneuvering. I'm not, don't quote me on this, but it's the skill of being able to move yourself throughout your environment. These people are amazing at adapting on the fly, being able to go to point A to point B, regardless of what obstacle is in front of them. If you've seen any of those amazing YouTube videos, if you haven't, just search parkour. You'll spend the next 3 hours of your life going down that black hole. But it's absolutely fascinating. And one thing that you learn when you are doing parkour, also, in the different, martial arts, is falling is a skill and something to be expected. Now, when you think of the rehab world, falling is something to be avoided. In the parkour, the martial arts world, falling is to be expected. And if something is to be expected, or we are going to experience it, we should prepare for it. We should develop that skill and practice it and practice it and practice it. And that's what they do. I asked Ben, when do you learn to fall, in the parkour world when you're starting to get into that discipline? It's the first thing that they do. They don't start with all the sexy jumps and the rolls and all the things that you see on the YouTube videos, but they start with the skill of falling and how to fall without getting injured. Now, when we think of the rehab world, it's the exact opposite. We talk about falls prevention all the time. We throw out the stats. 1 in 3 older adults over the age of 65 will fall this year. 37.5% of those people will have an injury with that fall. We spend millions and millions of dollars every year, blah, 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 blah. Falls prevention, falls prevention, falls prevention. That's great. We need to be talking about that. But what if falling is more normal than what we think? What if falling is a normal part of the human experience? I have fallen recently. I know my partner in crime, Christina, admits to falling sometimes. Ben falls, the amazing athlete that he is. Sometimes we just fall, and some of them are avoidable. We can prevent those falls, but some of them are not. And if they're not avoidable, we need to talk about the skill of falling and landing without getting hurt. Falls, going from falls prevention to still, focusing on that, but also incorporating falls preparedness. How can we do that? How can we incorporate falls and really start to talk about it as a normal part of the human movement skills that we try and develop with our patients? We talk about squatting, we talk about deadlifting, we talk about upper extremity pushes and pulls. Let's add falling into that vocabulary to really develop that skill with our patients. And that's what Ben is advocating for, and I freaking love that. How he puts it so eloquently that falling should be a part of our movement vocabulary, or that human movement continuum. continuum. And so in the blog post, it kind of runs through how you can fall without getting injured. And I'm going to kind of give these a quick summary for you all. So first one is be aware of your environment. Obviously, know what's around you. If you happen to fall, do you want to fall on the concrete sidewalk in front of you, or would you like to fall on this lovely soft grass beside you? No brainer there. But also, don't do things that are going to set you up for a fall, like texting and walking like so many of us are doing nowadays. So that's where he talks about just being aware, scanning your environment, just in normal day life. Number 2, don't freeze. What you'll often see with folks that may not have spent a lot of time on the ground or haven't fallen in a while or don't have that skill, they freeze. Either they lock their arms out or they just kind of fall like a sack of potatoes and don't do anything to prepare for that impact. What Ben is advocating for is, we should have starting probably with conscious strategies, moving to unconscious strategies, these automatic reactions of ways that we can kind of disperse that force. So we don't freeze, but we prepare. We know what to do. We know how to land, what not to hit, protect our head, all these different things that are automatic. So don't freeze. Obviously, you're not going to read Ben's blog post or listen to this podcast and be like, okay, when I fall, don't freeze. I won't freeze. That's not going to happen. As soon as you trip, you probably will freeze if you don't have these skills, if you don't have those reps. But this is something that we have to practice, but we need to avoid that freezing, that high threshold strategy that is so common when people lose their balance. The next one, avoid straight lines. So you can handle force a whole lot better when your elbows are a little bent versus straightforward. The classic Fuchs injury that, every single outpatient physical therapist here and then a lot of the home health folks that are in my camp, we work with folks all the time that have some type of Fuchs injury, falling on outstretched hands. They have that straight line versus a little bit of a bend to let their muscles do the work of absorbing some of that force. And Ben talks a lot about that, to where we avoid straight lines with our arms, with our legs, maybe even our torso, to help disperse that load and let our muscles absorb some of that force versus all going through our bony structure where we know the weak point in the chain, something is going to happen, potentially a fracture. So avoiding straight lines. The next one is spreading your impact across multiple body segments. One thing that I love to do, this really demonstrates it well for me, at least, is if you get on, let's say, a 24-inch box or a high step, if you just jump down, if you have been doing box jumps for a while, just jump down with both feet, kind of feel how that lands, kind of absorb that force, try and land softly, but then do that again. But after your feet land, go down into kind of a deeper squat and let your hands get on the ground. And even just adding your hands into the equation, you can disperse that force to where it's not as jarring on the body. And especially if you really focus on just having a soft landing. So spreading your impact across multiple body segments, getting your hands on the ground, obviously not with the straight line, but, with your arms bent can be helpful, or dispersing the force across, maybe you land with your feet and then your hips hit the ground and then the ground kind of rolls across your back. You're getting all those different parts of your body on the ground in a sequential manner that's going to disperse the force. And you'll see a video of this in a little bit when Ben demonstrates. So spreading your impact across multiple body segments. The next one is stay away from your bony prominences. So where your bones are close to the surface, they're not going to handle force very well. So you probably want to avoid it. It'll be super painful as well. So we don't want to land on our elbows, on our patellas, on our heads. So we want to use kind of the softer mass, our muscle mass, for some of us that have it. I'm still the scrawny runner that has limited amounts of muscle mass to use, but that's what we want to try and use to handle that force. The glutes are probably the most common, glutes and then kind of lats, that area. A lot of martial artists and parkour athletes will utilize those areas of the body when they do fall, when they do roll, or when they land. So stay away from your bony prominences, use your muscle padding, and then last but not least, use a roll when appropriate. Rolling in the parkour world looks super cool. When you go down that 3-hour YouTube rabbit hole, you'll see a lot of people doing these crazy jumps from super high surfaces, and they try and disperse that force once they land, and they roll, and then they take off and they're still running. Looks super cool. But for us, the normal person that may just have a regular old fall, rolling probably isn't necessary. So don't feel like you have to roll when you fall. I know I felt that when I first started to play around with parkour and doing different obstacle courses and whatnot. But a lot of times, you don't necessarily need to roll. It is a skill you may want to have, but don't feel like you have to do it. And you probably won't be doing that with a lot of our patients, especially if you're like me and working with mainly the Jerry PT or the Jerry population. So those are the big things that he talked about in his article. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the continuum that Ben uses, starting people on the ground and working their way up. So they're getting taller and taller and taller and working on the skill of falling. This was very helpful for me to practice myself, but then will also be very scalable even for my patients that are considered homebound, because I'm a home health therapist. So watch this video, then stick around to see how you can win one of Ben's books in the How to Fall Challenge. The goal of this is for you to get one of his books, but also to change the narrative from falls prevention to falls preparedness.
So the first thing I have people do, I just got a yoga mat, which in a pinch is going to work, but just building familiarity being on your back. It's like an area we don't have a lot of proprioceptive awareness. We're not on it aside from sleeping. But I would just start people out with like a rock and roll kind of knee tuck on the ground.
Yeah.
Trying to become familiar with what's it like to move on that part of my body. Okay, it doesn't feel great to roll across the spinous processes. Feels a little better to roll off on the muscular lateral parts of your body. After that, they've built some familiarity there, and there's no like scientific sequence to this, but even just doing like a log roll. So okay, I'm here. What's it like to roll over? Just becoming familiar with different parts of your body interacting with the ground. They don't often hit the ground, hit the hard surface. After that, maybe you can start in quadruped. Okay, I'm in quadruped, and from here, I'm gonna go down onto my back and come back up. Go to the other side, quadruped down, back up. From there, maybe like some long sitting, or just kind of sitting from here. What's it like to go back on that 30 to 45 degree angle? Other side. 30,
tuck.
Yeah, I mean, your head's not touching the ground. Yeah. Head's not touching the ground, so it's up off the ground for sure. So kind of building in these lateral, angular, off to the side, back up, off to the side, back up. That would be from there. We can get up to kneeling then. Try it from kneeling. Okay, we're going down. Back up. So we're just progressively going from the ground higher and higher. You can even get up to tall kneeling there. Try and go back. From there, you get to a squat. So you're starting in a squat, and what's it feel like to go down from a squat? From there, and head's never touching the ground. And then start taking it up from there. So now you can start being more vertical. Out in the community, I mean, taking advantage of wood-chipped playgrounds. If you want to do this on your own, wood-chipped playgrounds, a slight slope, a grassy slope could be a good thing, because now you're not dropping as far. If you fall onto the slope, it's going to meet you halfway.
So
or a sand pit.
A lot of it, you're going kind of the 30 to 45 degrees, kind of posteriorly. After they get that, are you working more on the lateral type?
That is something, yeah, parkour coaches will do with people, is work those different angles of falls for sure. Generally, that's kind of the way I'm going to try and fall, though, is on an angle back that way, just because I can know that I can use the muscular part of my body. Out here, I mean, my arms extended away from my body. I prefer to kind of have it all go back to there anyway.
And that requires a tremendous amount of strength too, I feel, especially if we try and not have straight lines, to be able to handle that, requires a good bit of, that pressing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to start in the head, right? If you're going down, I'm going to turn my head and let the head steer the way so that I'm going to end up that way. Even if I go forward, I'm not going to land on my chin. Even if I'm going forward, I'm going to try to end up on my side a little bit. If I trip going this way, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to actually come down that way.
Okay. Man, I know what I'm going to do today. The sun's actually shining in Kentucky, so I'm going to have to go to the park down the street and try some of this stuff. But that's helpful. I think when many people, and even me, like when we hear about this stuff, we think from standing to the ground, and that's intimidating for me and scares the crap out of me to think about doing it with my patients. But just starting from, that continuum like you just showed makes it so much more manageable to the point where, it's not as intimidating now to think about going from a standing.
Right, to build that movement vocabulary. Okay, I know what it actually feels like on my body to be on my back, on the ground, on my side. So start down and just build that. Okay, here's what it's like to roll across those muscle groups. Here's what going across my shoulder feels like from sitting. So work, developmentally low to high, simple to complex, and then you can get in here.
This one is a little more. I was trying to do this earlier, but I let my head hit.
I liked it. That was good.
There you have it, folks. I hope you found that video and those progressions helpful. I know it was very helpful for me personally, and know I can use these with some of my patients. So now on to the challenge. So we're going to do the hashtag How to Fall Challenge. So how you can enter into this contest, which the contest is to win one of Ben's books, the Mad Skills Exercise Encyclopedia. Just came out with the second edition. It's his most popular book, very practical for your own fitness. Lots of good ideas of exercise progressions, but also could incorporate into your rehab programs as well. So the first thing that you need to do, you probably want to read Ben's post, linked in this Facebook post, in this video, also be linked in the podcast as well. Go through that, review some of those principles. Then number 2, I want you to film yourself falling from standing, from squatting, from kneeling, sitting, whatever you want. You don't necessarily need to fall from an elevated surface, but do whatever you're comfortable with doing. You saw the progressions in the video that I just showed you. But film yourself falling, and then in that post, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, use the hashtag HowToFall challenge. Tag me and Ben, so that's Ben Musholt and @SeniorRehab, and then a little blurb about why falling or the skill of falling may be important and maybe something that we need to incorporate into our movement practice or our movement vocabulary. If you do that by March 15th, you will enter to win. Now, what we really want to encourage is you to challenge someone else. So in the comments of your post, tag a friend and encourage them to accept the challenge and film themselves falling and practicing some of these principles that we talked about. So March 15th is the deadline. Do that. You'll be entered to win, and then I will get a hold of you. We'll announce the winner on March 15th on the SRP account, also the ICE account, and Ben as well. So we'll make sure to find you if you win. On Facebook or Instagram, the How to Fall Challenge. Hit me up if you have any questions, but we're excited to see what y'all are able to do. Y'all have a good one.